So now for some fun stuff. Today we're going to download and install both R and RStudio. So what exactly is R? R is a language and environment for statistical computing and graphics. R is based on the S language and the environment that was developed at Bell Labs, which is now AT&T. It was done by John Chambers and colleagues. R is free, both in terms of no cost, but also as freely distributed and shared under the new general public licensing. To learn more about R, we're going to visit the R project website. This site provides good information about what R is, who the key contributors are, information about the development of the R language. Links are also provided for the manuals, frequently asked questions, the R journals, books, and other information. You have the option at the top of this page to click on the button or the link that says Download R. However, this takes you to a list of mirrors. That's one option. The other option is just to go to the CRAN website directly, which is at cran.r-project.org. And right here at the very top, it says to download and install R. There's options here for downloading it for Linux, Mac, as well as Windows. For example, if we click on the one for downloading Windows, we're going to want the base installation. So click on the link for installing it for the first time. From here, the top link is for downloading it. And I'm not going to click this because once I do, it's actually going to download the executable. And it's a little hard to see on the screen, but at the very bottom, you'll notice that this link goes to an executable file or a .exe. This is the file that you need to download and run, and it will install it on a Windows computer. This is the page for downloading R for a Mac. And the files that are listed, this first one downloads a .pkg file, which is what you're going to want for downloading and installing R on a Macintosh. So go ahead and take a few minutes, download the installer that you need for your operating system. Run through the instructions and accept all of the defaults and install R on your computer. Once R is installed on your computer, here's an example of what it looks like on my Windows computer. If I scroll through my Start Programs window, I have a link now for R. On my computer, I've got multiple versions installed. You should probably just have one version. I'm actually going to run the 64-bit installation version. I can click on the icon there within the Start menu programs, or I also have these icons here installed on my desktop, and I could easily just double-click one of those to start R. It's worth noting that this is the minimum software that you actually need for running R. And when you open it, you get a very basic interface shown here. You can type commands. For example, we can do simple math and just type 2 plus 2 and get 4. We can run functions like the mean function and look at a series of numbers such as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 and find the mean of those numbers. But again, this interface is not very helpful. You really have to know the R language and you have to be well versed in the commands. And there's no additional sort of ready to see help. There are a few menus up here at the top that give you some oversight of the scripts and functions that you're running. And there is a link here for the help with an FAQ on R as well as some of the manuals. But programming in R using this basic interface is not the best way. Instead, let's go ahead and download and install the RStudio software. RStudio is a fully integrated development environment, also called an IDE. This is the key interface that we're going to be using for the rest of the course. Not only does RStudio link directly to R and provide a much better programming interface, but it also allows you to create great R Markdown documents in multiple formats and then links everything together with your GitHub repository using version control with Git. We're going to cover GitHub and Git in the next lesson. So let's go ahead and go to the RStudio website. And from here, we can explore the many products and services available from the RStudio organization. For example, there's links here to frequently asked questions as well as their support center. There are cheat sheets, webinars and videos, and lots of online learning. But for right now, we're going to go to the products option and download RStudio. From here, there's two options. There is a desktop and a server option. We're going to be using RStudio for the desktop. And again, there's multiple versions of that. You can have the open source or have a commercial license. We're going to use the open source free edition. So click on Download RStudio Desktop. And we're again going to be using the open source license, and we can click on Download. When we do this, it basically just scrolls down the page. There's a link here for the various installers for the different operating systems. There's also a link here for zip tarballs and source code. We're not going to deal with either one of those because those are for developers. Click on the installer for your operating system. For example, for the Windows system, if you click on this, it downloads an exe or executable. For the Mac operating system, it downloads a DMG file. And then there are various options here for the different flavors of Unix. Go ahead and download the RStudio for your operating system and get it installed. So now that you've got RStudio installed, go ahead and click on it and get it running. When your RStudio opens, you should get an interface that looks something similar to this. Yours may not look exactly like this, but it should look similar. So let's go through a few basic things. There's a main window here on the left. That's your console window. This is basically the same interface that you saw when we ran the base R software. For example, we can do the same commands we did before, where we were typing in some math, like 2 + 2, and got 4. We can also type in the main function, and you'll notice when I'm in the RStudio interface, it does a couple of things. It tries to guess what I'm going to type next, and if I use an open parentheses, it goes ahead and gives me the closed parentheses so I don't accidentally make that mistake. But let's put in some series of numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can find the mean of those. And we should basically get the same answers that we got before. So at this point, when you're working here in the console window, there's no real difference between this and working in the base R package. You have access to keep track of what's in your environment, and we're going to talk more about what that means later. There's a history of all of the functions and commands that you've ever typed. And down on the bottom right, we have a link to the different files on our computer. Once we get going, we'll generate plots. There's a link here for the different packages that may be installed on your computer. And we're going to talk more about packages later. You'll notice that there's a link here for help. This is for looking things up relative to specific functions or packages. At the top, there's also a link for help that gives you the R help window, gives you information about RStudio. Again, you have links here to different cheat sheets, and then there's some other quick lookup references, including things on Markdown, which you're going to see a little bit later. However, I've also included several helpful links in a reading page after this video lecture. There's literally thousands of resources for learning more about both R and RStudio. Just pick your favorite search engine and look for tutorials on R and RStudio.